This week will be fun, ladies.
Yeah. First off, I would like to thank Chris Gordon with CpwBranch. He texted me earlier this week and was kind of asking me how things were going at work. And some of you may or may not know that I portray a police officer in the movies. And I'm actually a professional motocross racer full time.
Also in the movies.
Right. No, I'm kidding. I'm a police officer, and so we've been kind of dealing with some things that everybody knows about in the news. And so he shot me a text and wanted to know if I wanted to come down and just sort of have the track to myself. And so he came down, and which you'll see some of that on this episode. And so it was nice. It was I really appreciated that he reached out and said that we could come down and the track was mine just to blow off some steam. So that was really nice. So thank you, Chris, a lot. That was much appreciated. Fingers crossed that this thing will crank. So pardon the way I'm dressed. I typically always look like a bum. And also the background noise. They're extending the road out, and so there's a lot of construction noise behind me. So pardon that. All right. I'm gonna go up and down a few times. Like, there was no compression before. The Kickstarter would just go right down. You wouldn't hear any of that breather sound at all. So
Never go to practice just for the thing of offloading your bike and going round and round. Have always something that you're going to work on, because that's the way that you improve. So my little thing that I've been working on, and I mean I've been doing this for years, not the same thing but different things over and over, but I'm back now again in the thing about working the bike with the lower part of my body instead of trying to use my upper part of my body to control the bike. So I feel everything from the bottom and squeezing the bike properly with the knees and stuff like that. So all I'm saying to you is that have something ready for you when you go to a track for your training, and work on something as well. I'm not saying you must bump out the laps and all that. Sure, you have to do that for endurance, but work on something as well.
yeah, I think that's a good. And as you'll see when we're down at CpwBranch, you went out and I think you did 3 laps standing.
Yes.
Completely working on
getting the feel, just controlling everything from the bottom end.
Right. So you'll see that from the footage down at CpwBranch. And yeah, you're right. I mean, it's just a matter of whenever you go to the track, even if you're just going to pick a couple motos and say, I'm going to work on this. And then, yeah, it's cool to be able to go out there and just say, you know what, I'm just going to go round and round and round and have fun and hit the jumps and whatnot. But, when you're putting in the training, you're right, you definitely need to pick something that you're going to want to work on, right? So you want to work on scrubbing certain jumps, or you want to work on cornering, or you want to work
Doesn't matter what it is, have something so that at the end of the day, or the end of that session, you feel that you've improved something.
Right. finally come for me to start putting this project back together. It's been, gosh, almost a month since I started breaking this thing down, and probably been about 2.5 weeks since I discovered what was wrong. And so it's taken that long to get the new part in. And if you remember last episode, it was this little aluminum piece that had bent, and the one piece came off of the pin in the motor, and it in a sense jumped the timing chain jumped off of the gear. So it's been quite a while since I've been able to get back on this thing. So I don't know about you all, it's kind of crazy how hard it is to get parts and gear and things right now. Everybody seems to be out of stuff. Everything's on back order, it seems like. And so the what I'm understanding when I talk to a lot of the suppliers is that apparently a lot of people are home, they're working from home, so I guess they're riding a lot, and then this stimulus money that came out here about a month ago or more, so people have put that money back into the sport, which is good, I'm glad, but it has left a lot of things on back order and a lot of empty shelves. So hopefully in a few months, maybe this fall, or it may even take next spring for the supply to get back to where it needs to be, but hopefully we can get back to some sort of normal pattern in purchasing stuff, tires, chains, wear items that are hard to get right now. So just wondering if any of y'all are having the same problem I'm having, where your projects are down for almost a month waiting on little bitty $3 parts. So let me take a minute and show you what I've done so far, and I'm going to get started putting this thing back together. But where I'm at now is I have installed the new aluminum retaining piece, and the new chain is on. And so if you'll notice this gap, how small the gap is, which is really what you want. So we are going to get started. There are a couple of methods that you can use to tighten this flywheel back down, and there's several on YouTube. You can research it, what works best for you. For me, I've decided to purchase this tool that has these pins that will insert into these holes, and then you just basically hold the flywheel. Now this thing's magnetized, so it's going to want to kind of grab it and make it a little difficult to get these pins in there. But basically you're going to put these pins down into the holes of the flywheel, and it'll allow you to hold the flywheel straight. Then on this Kawasaki, this nut is a 17 millimeter, and so you're going to use a torque wrench and check what your bike's specifications for the torque specs on this nut is, and then this tool holds the flywheel, and then you get your torque wrench and basically tighten the nut down to the specs. Now I don't go all the way and set the torque wrench to the torque spec. I'll set it about 10 or 15 foot-pounds less, and then work my way up to the final torque spec. So like for this one, I'm gonna torque it at 60, and so what I'll do is I'll set it for 40, and then go to that, and then I'll give it its last 10 or 20 foot-pounds at the end. All right, so you heard it click, right? And so I will give it its last, so it's at 40. And there's 60. So we've got the side case on the flywheel side installed with all the bolts spec'd down like they're supposed to be, and we have installed the OEM piston and wrist pin and the circlips. Now, one thing that I noticed, which is kind of interesting, so this bike, when I bought it used, had a Pro Circuit piston put in it. And this is the Pro Circuit piston, which really doesn't look that much different than the OEM. But what I do think, and I didn't weigh them, but I think this one's a little bit lighter than the OEM. But what I did notice, which is kind of interesting, and I will bring the camera in a little bit closer so that hopefully you can see. So this is the wrist pin that came with the Pro Circuit piston, and it is quite a bit thinner inside. So the wall here is quite a bit thinner than the OEM wrist pin. And if you can maybe see how much thicker that one is than this one. So what I'm thinking is the situation is the Pro Circuit piston and wrist pin are quite a bit lighter, which obviously your mass, which is moving up and down when it's lighter, obviously is going to decrease your forces or whatever. Some of you physicists out there can understand that. But so this definitely, the wall is thinner, and I'm quite certain it's probably a lot lighter than the OEM wrist pin. And then also I think the piston itself, the Pro Circuit piston, is probably lighter. But other than that, I don't think there's any more compression or anything versus one versus the other. So kind of interesting thing I ran into when I started installing this wrist pin versus or the OEM versus this one. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is install the cylinder onto the piston. And so what I've done is put a lot of Lucas Oil assembly lube all on the inside cylinder wall. So what we're going to do is install this next and just start working our way up with the head and everything else. So here we are. Motor is back together. Everything is plugged back up. It has oil, it has coolant, a fresh new air cleaners in it. All I need to do is put the gas tank on it. And it does have some fresh gas in it. So we will put the gas tank on and see if this thing will fire up. Fingers crossed. So I did have this hooked up for a little while, so gas was able to get through it. I fired these up after I rebuilt the top end, and it takes a few kicks right when you hook the tank up because it's got to get gas down through it. But it's been sitting up here while I've gotten some stuff ready, the camera and whatnot. So it seemed to fire it up pretty quick, and it seems okay. So let's go ahead and put some plastics on it, and maybe tomorrow we're going to break this baby in. I am glad to have this thing back running again.